If you're over 30 and you're struggling to gain muscle, this is going to be the video for you. So keep watching and I'm going to explain every single thing that you can do as soon as you cross that dreaded age to keep the gains coming. Because let me tell you this, training in your 20s is different than when you're in your 30s. Let's face it, your recovery isn't what it used to be. Your life is a lot busier. You've got a lot going on and you get reminded how much your joints ache every single morning when you wake up. I feel you too. I'm 32 years old and ever since I turned 30, things, they start to hurt a little bit more now. Before I get into this, I need to explain a little bit about myself. I am Josh Bridgman. I'm an IFBB pro. I'm a professional bodybuilder. Build muscle and lose fat for a job. But more importantly, for 12 years, I've coached people just like you. I've coached people who are in their teens, who are in their 20s, who are in their 30s, 40s, all the way up to their late 50s. And I know the strategies and I've taken these people through the strategies to achieve the results for them. And it's different. It really is different decade to decade. And it's important to understand that and probably accept that a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to take you through everything that you need to do after the age of 30 that can massively improve your ability to build muscle, but also burn body fat. The foundation of any muscle building program to begin with is going to be training. And there are things that work specifically for people over 30, and we're going to break them down one by one. Number one, you need to lift with impeccable form. Unfortunately, we don't have the rubber joints that we used to. We don't get to bounce things off our chest anymore. We don't get to yank things down with everything in us and then absolutely feel fine the next day like you could go run a marathon. You got to improve your form. You have to focus on keeping it slow, keeping it controlled, and keeping it accurate. That is a really, really important factor for you to take your training to the next level. What that is going to do, it's going to put more tension into the muscle, but it's also going to reduce the risk and reduce the pressure going through your joints. Everyone knows what it's like if you're watching this over 30, maybe a little bit later, 30 is a bit young, but everyone watching this video knows what it feels like to wake up, you've got that creaky neck, the hips are aching a little bit, and you just went a little bit hard the day before. And this is where form really, really matters. So the more control you have, the better safety you're going to have, first and foremost. Then I'd like you to focus on prioritizing compound lifts. Compound lifts are basically multi-joint, multi-muscle lifts that are going to, in essence, get more bang for your buck because you're keeping them safe, but you're also using multiple muscles at once. And you're also going to stimulate growth hormone and also testosterone. So when you do those big, heavy lifts, your body is getting told, well, we need to grow right now. So it's important that you keep those lifts as the paramount part of your lifting program. More specifically, if you want to talk about actual exercises, there are things that you can do that can massively increase your chances of reducing risk, reducing your joint pressure, reducing that creakiness in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening. If you're ticking all three, then this video is definitely for you. And this might go against the typical convention, but I want you to remove barbell squats, I want you to remove deadlifts, and I want you to remove squats. Because for me, the risk versus reward of those exercises doesn't add up. The risk of loading however many plates it is on a barbell squat, making sure that that squat fits you, yanking 4, 5, 6, however many plates off the floor with not perfect form, the room for error is a lot bigger than, say, for example, you would drop the barbell squat, you could do a more fixed squat, like a hack squat. This is much safer. And I think safety is where your brain should start thinking about these muscles. Now, barbell squats work, deadlifts work, bench presses work. They just come with more risk. And the older you get, the more you want to reduce that risk. That is it. I'm not saying that you can't do them. I would just be taking them a little bit lighter and potentially a little bit slower because you're not what you used to be and you need to accept that and you need to train accordingly. The key principles of building muscle still remain the same no matter what age you are. So that is progressive overload. That does mean that you need to increase the weight over time. That does mean you need to increase the reps over time. But one thing I want you to focus on is improving reps. Now, people often overlook the quality of a rep. If you do one rep that is very good and you do one rep that is perfect, the rep that is perfect is recruiting more muscle and it's reducing joint pressure even more. So go in pursuit of that perfect rep. I think when we're younger, we're told to get stronger, and that is very, very sure. That's key. That is key. But when you're 10, maybe 15, maybe 20 years into your lifting journey, the inverted U curve of strength progression is there. Like you've done your good part where you progress really quickly. You're on the curve up where it's hard to progress as much body weight, as much weight on the bar, sorry. So this is where you can improve reps, the type of rep, how good it is, how slow it is, how much control you have. And this is a massively underrated tool that I implement with all of my clients who have been lifting for a very long period of time, is how good can we get that rep? We'll bring their lifts up on screen so we can see them front, side, and back, and we'll draw lines where the elbow path should be. We'll explain exactly how hard training should be, and we'll give them the directions that they need in order to keep progressing without the risk of injury. Another thing that you can focus on is training more muscles per week. So the age-old split, the bodybuilding split of destroying your chest on a Monday, destroying your back on a Tuesday is gone. I think the science behind it is pretty well proven, and if you are still doing that, don't get left behind, adjust your program. What I want you to do is either push-pull legs, maybe do upper lower, but what I want you to do is focus on training each muscle more than once per week. Now, every time we train, we send a muscle building signal to our body. That muscle building signal is a hypertrophic signal. It basically says we need more muscle. That signal can last up to 72 hours. So we could say, right, if you do that once a week, that signal gets sent for 72 hours, you've got some muscle building potential for 72 hours. You then have another 4 more days without sending that signal again. So if you can send that signal potentially every 3, potentially every 4 days, you're going to improve the amount of muscle that you have. So this is where you double up muscle groups, and that is where upper lower splits or push-pull leg splits can come into handy. The next thing is going to be working close to failure, but not to failure. Now, like I said, we're not made out of rubber anymore. We don't get to empty the metaphorical tank to the absolute limit always. There's definitely circumstances that you still can, but I would urge you to be a little bit more careful. Now, if I could put how hard a set is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you can't move that bar anymore, it's stuck on your chest, I want you 1 or 2 reps short of that. I think the risk versus reward of those final 2 reps is not worth the fatigue, it's not worth the risk to injury for the muscle that could potentially be built in those final 2 reps. So I would be looking much more into pulling down to about an 8 out of 10 and keeping that consistent across all of your lifts. Now, it's got to be a true 8 out of 10. It can't just be like, yeah, I think I had 2 more left. So you might need to take it to the absolute brim one time so you know what that feels like. But I'm telling you, take that off, the risk of injury is going to come way down. And I think you're also going to get a lot more done in that workout because you're not going to kill yourself from fatigue. We already talked a little bit about slowing down your reps, but time under tension is crucial, especially in the eccentric phase. Your body actually uses energy differently in an eccentric phase. It doesn't use hardly any energy when you're coming down in the eccentric phase because really all you're doing is controlling your weight down. You're not exerting force on the bar or exerting force on the weight. So I would definitely recommend slowing down those eccentrics. Something like 3 seconds is a really, really good thing and something that we try and get all of our clients to do because you're getting the same potential muscle building effect in the eccentric part of the motion as the concentric, which is the contracting motion, but using significantly less energy. And it's also safer, which is 2 things to consider. So if it's safer and you get the same amount of hypertrophy stimulus and you lose less energy, it's a no-brainer that you want to spend more time in that eccentric part of the motion than the concentric, which is why you'll see a lot of bodybuilders, if they're doing a bench press, go 1, 2, 3, and then press up, because it's actually more beneficial for you in terms of building muscle, and it's safer. Don't neglect isolation work. I know we talked a lot about compound movements, and they are great. They should be a foundation, but pay attention to the small body parts. Rear delts, arms, calves, common lagging areas. These isolation movements can also be very, very safe because the weight that you're using isn't tremendous. So you can actually get a lot of work done directly on the muscle in these isolation movements, so don't mess them. Then I want you to train with intention. And this is going to wrap up the training session. Follow a structured program. Progress phases. Make the volume correct. Deload at the right time. I don't want you just to go in there and wing it. Those times are over, because if you go in there and wing it, you've got the guesswork going. Guess what? You might do too much one day. You might do too little one day. You might go in and try a new exercise you haven't tried in 10 years and have a huge risk of injury because you trained too hard on the first time using that exercise. So instead, put a plan in place, put a structure in place, follow it, be as accurate as possible as you can with it. So we talked about training. Now we can talk about nutrition, because ultimately, the older you get, you don't assimilate food the same. You don't break down micronutrition the same, and you need to be a little bit more careful of what you put in your body, because our metabolisms change with age, they start to come down, and with hormonal change as well, becomes different diet choices that you need to be aware of. So firstly, when you're trying to gain muscle, I want you to eat in a slight caloric surplus. The days of 1,000 calorie surplus is dirty bulking. Unfortunately, they're over, because that fat becomes more stubborn to lose on the back end of it. So what I want you to focus much more on is a controlled rate of gain. And a really, really good number to go off is 1% of your total body weight per month. Now you might be thinking, what, per month? Wow, I've been doing that a little bit quicker. Well, maybe you need to do it a little bit slower. If you're 100 kilos, it's only a kilo a month. Yeah, 250 grams per week. That's not a lot. If you think about your body and how long you've been lifting for, potentially, or just the fact that you're a little bit older and your joints aren't as intact as they used to be, your muscles aren't as accustomed to the weight that you're lifting, and you put on half a kilo a week, how much of that is really muscle? Probably not a lot. So I really want you to focus on that and make sure that you're not overdoing it. If you look great, you look lean and you're gaining half a kilo a week, great, don't stop. But 9 times out of 10, that's not gonna be you, especially if you're a natural lifter over the age of 30. Secondly, hit your protein goals no matter what. Muscle becomes much easier to lose the older you get. Protein targets are very, very key for that. Super simple, 1 gram per pound of body weight, really easy to follow. When you're younger, your body just wants to grow. Big dumps of testosterone, easy to sleep, super low stress environments, it's much easier to grow. So you have to be a little bit more meticulous with these moments. Eat something like 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. We know that 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal is going to have 2 to 3 grams of leucine, which is a key ingredient in the essential amino acid spectrum, which builds muscle. So you really want to be getting above that 30 gram mark. If you're not already, bump it up a little bit and watch yourself feel a little bit fuller, recover a little bit better, and that should be quite noticeable. Next thing, prioritize whole foods. Like I said earlier, like your body isn't going to tolerate shit food as much anymore. Metabolism's lower. Your reaction to salt is a little bit worse. We've probably started to creep into high blood pressure territories. Maybe your cholesterol's a little bit worse from 30 years of eating, 35 years, 40 years of eating. This is where whole foods, whole grains, and single ingredient foods is going to come into your own. And it's going to do you a lot of favors. So pick the typical foods, guys. There's no secret with the foods. Just don't eat processed foods or moderate it a little bit more. The next thing is going to be paying more and more attention to pre and post workout nutrition. Eat carbohydrates and protein, a good serving, 1 or 2 hours before your workout and after your workout as well. This matters more as you age. Again, we aren't built to just perform all day. We don't get to go for a 12-hour shift and of manual labor and walk into the gym and just still feel strong. Those shifts, those stress, the day-to-day stress, it starts to build up on you. And this is where you actively need to fuel your body a little bit better. There's no good just throwing in a load of caffeine and going hell for leather, because that's where injuries occur. Instead, still fuel yourself with caffeine, but also fuel yourself right with recovery and also pre-training. It's going to be a very, very key ingredient for you to increase your performances and still keep building muscle over the age of 30. And finally, and I think this happens quite a lot with people who get older, they start to fear carbohydrates. And I get a lot of calls for people who want to join the coaching program. And during the call, what we do is we really explore what they do right now. And a lot of the time, people are under eating. They think carbohydrates are the devil. Carbohydrates are what make you feel fat, because honestly, when you eat carbohydrates is when you can actually feel them sometimes. Because they fill a muscle out, they bring water retention in, and people often attribute that to having more body fat. But actually, carbohydrates are our most readily available source of energy. They can help you perform, they can help you recover, and it's actually all about the balance of carbohydrates across your total calories for the day. So don't fear them, use them as fuel, use them as recovery, and if you do it appropriately, then you should find that they actually help you long term. So we'll move on to recovery. This is the secret sauce. Not the sauce you're thinking about, not the sauce that I'm using, of course. Some of you already commented on here, mentioning that I'm on steroids. Yes, I am, but I'm also a professional bodybuilder. And I also competed 6 years naturally. And I'm only just into my 5th year unnaturally right now. So, and every single one of my clients is natural right now. Maybe 10% of them aren't. So 90% of the people that I coach, it's all for natural bodybuilding. And these are some of the things that they do that massively improve their recovery, and some of the things that we prescribe to them to help improve that recovery, especially as they age, because recovery just gets a little bit harder. These are going to be the things that separate muscle builders over the age of 30 and the ones who just really struggle, because they want to live a little bit like they were in their 20s or their teenage years, but they just don't feel as good anymore, and they're wondering why they've got brain fog, and they're wondering why things are feeling rubbish. Well, first and foremost, I want you to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. We work sleep cycles. They're about 90 minutes each, and research shows that 5 sleep cycles is going to be optimal for you. 5 times 90 is 7.5. 7.5 hours of sleep should be your minimum. That should be where you're aiming for. And it's not just actually about the time that you're asleep, it's about the quality of your sleep. So for those of you guys who have the fortune to track their sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, different stages of sleep, they mean different things. And deep sleep is where you release growth hormone. REM sleep is where you detox. REM sleep is where you formulate your memories. So if you're not having quality REM sleep, quality deep sleep, quality stages of sleep, you're inhibiting your growth, you're inhibiting your memory, and you're quite literally making yourself less functional. So what I want you to focus on is not only the time in bed, but the quality of that sleep. Now, not everyone can track the quality, that's fine. So you have to use a little bit of internal feedback. How do you feel? How's your mental ability? How's your memory? Are those things good? Okay, you're probably sleeping quite well. If not, Apple Watch, Oura Ring, Whoop bands, they're prevalent everywhere right now. So maybe just try get one if you've got the funds, and just see. You can just look and you can see what needs work. And once you establish what needs to be improved, you can then prescribe, because it could be you need a cooler room for deep sleep. Your body temperature needs to come down for deep sleep. Maybe you need blinds in the morning because you have to wake up late. You have to wake up after sunrise. Well, guess what? You have photoreceptors on your eyes, and if your room isn't dark, your brain's going to wake up. On your eyelids, sorry. Literally, your eyes could be closed. Of course, you guys close your eyelids and look at a light, you can sense it already. So there's many, many things that you might need to address. You just need to know which bit to address. Do you struggle getting to sleep? Do you struggle staying to sleep? And this is part of our sleep diagnosis that we put through all of our clients. Do you struggle getting to sleep, staying asleep? What does your REM sleep look like? What does your deep sleep look like? Once you put little small things in each of these places, we see a tenfold response in how people will grow, how people think, and how people feel, which is the most important. You need to manage stress. Guess what? As you get older, we got more responsibilities. I know I fucking do. I don't feel anywhere near as calm and easygoing as I was when I just turned 20, that is for sure. When I just turned up at uni and the government sent me a £500 maintenance loan for the week, and I just was, the biggest decision for me was like Domino's or Pizza Hut every night. Well, now we've got to feed families, now we've got to run businesses, now we've got to scale businesses, now we've got to take care of people, and the stress comes with that. And cortisol is the stress hormone. Cortisol is a testosterone killer. Testosterone being low is going to stop muscle building, fat loss, and cortisol can do the same as well. So manage that stress as much as possible. You've got to be very, very mindful that being chronically stressed and being chronically high in cortisol, it's going to inhibit all of those things. And you become much more sensitive to that as you get older. So even more important to manage your stress and implement managing stress techniques. Maybe you journal, maybe you meditate. And if you don't want to do that woo-woo stuff, maybe get in a sauna, maybe do a streaming, maybe go for a walk, maybe listen to a podcast. Things that can just take your mind elsewhere and help you improve your recovery long term. The next thing is going to be rest. This kind of ties into a little bit of cortisol there. People don't rest enough. People think, I need to lose more, I need to do more. And maybe on paper that's the case, but when you start to do more and you under recover, you increase cortisol, you decrease testosterone, you decrease your thyroid, and all of these things are going to massively implement and ultimately hinder your muscle building and your fat loss journey. So rest, guys. One day is not enough. Honestly, 2 days a week is what you want to do. Maybe it's a little bit of a rest, active rest day, but away from lifting, away from the heavy duty stuff, take 2 days. Trust me. If you're not, take the extra day, do it, and come back to this video, comment down below, let me know if it made a difference, and I bet you it did. Then prioritize daily movement outside the gym. Guys, walking can not only burn calories, which is great, it can improve your blood pressure, it can improve your blood glucose. Those two things will naturally decline with age as well, so it's important to stay on top of it. It can improve your digestion, it can improve your basal metabolic rate. There is literally like not a negative to walking, apart from when it's raining, you don't want to do it, right? Okay, that's fine. But aim for those 7,000 to 10,000 steps, depending how busy you are. This really improves circulation, improves your recovery, maintains your mobility, and burns calories without taxing your nervous system, which at the end of the day is something that can get hammered every day when we train. Finally, we'll keep this brief, but schedule deloads, schedule recovery. Like if you can picture, and this is one thing how I describe it to my clients, is if you've got an empty cup and every day you train, you fill that cup up. Every time you don't train, the cup empties a little bit. Well, when you're doing 5 times a week, that cup kind of doesn't really get empty and actually kind of keeps filling up. Eventually, the cup overspills, you're too fatigued, and things get affected. Sex drive goes down, sleep doesn't improve, you don't feel very good in the gym, you can't progress anymore. This is when you need to take some time to empty the cup of fatigue, and it could be as simple as taking 4 days off. You could take 4 or 5 days off, relax, get your feet up, try coincide this with just natural breaks. Maybe you go on holiday, make a vacation, and take a break with the family. This is when I try and encourage my clients to take a deload. Or if you're one of those people that needs that training for mental health and you need to keep training, maybe you just like half your volume or half your intensity. So you can still go in, go through the motions, but just make sure that you're kind of reducing your intensity a little bit. And I think that will massively help you as well. The next one's going to be hormone optimization. So the older you get, the harder maintaining your testosterone is, and the harder maintaining thyroid is. And this is where you just have a gradual decline, but there are things that you can do to stop the decline. And I have had clients who have been in their mid-40s with perfect testosterone, so I know that it's possible because they will have one thing in common. Well, they will have a few things in common. Number one, they keep their body fat in check pretty much all the time. They've never been too fat, or if they have, they've lost it and they've maintained that body weight. They haven't underate for too long as well, which is really, really important, because if you undereat, you can starve those hormones pretty quickly. You find natural bodybuilders the day before they stepped on stage, if you tested their testosterone, it would be in the bin. So it's very important not to undereat for too long or diet for too long. One thing we do with as many clients as we can who are over the age of 30, 35 is get a full comprehensive blood panel done. And we actually pay for this under our coaching regime for anyone who's looking to optimize their hormones or improve their physique over the age of 35. If you hit the link in the description box, you can book in for a free call with me where we can give you a full diagnostic of where you're at and maybe give you some steps to help you improve, but also run you through how we can potentially help you. So like I said, what we do is we get a full comprehensive hormonal panel, maybe also get the liver, cholesterol, thyroid, HbA1c checked, and you're gonna get a full diagnosis of what is going on. Like, what does the engine look like? What do we need to do to get the engine well oiled again? And this is one thing we do with our clients who want to do it. We'll look at how we can improve that cholesterol, how we can get the body running easier, how we can improve your thyroid. And there's some very simple things that you can do that are either low hanging fruit and free, or a small financial investment. Maybe it's supplementation, maybe it's a training program, for example, and we can help optimize that. Finally, I want you to focus on a testosterone positive lifestyle. And that is basically everything we talked about here today. So lift heavy, eat sufficient healthy fats, sleep deeply, avoid endocrine disruptors like BPA plastics, limit alcohol consumption, limit drug intake as much as you can. And remember, the goal is to maximize your natural potential before considering TRT or anything else, because more often than not, people who come to me who want to start TRT, there's a whole lot of things that they can do before they need to do that. I'm going to leave it on this, and it's going to be the mindset and consistency. Shit gets harder when you get older. It doesn't feel as good to not progress as fast. It doesn't feel as good to not know where you're going. And it feels difficult to do things. It feels difficult to recover. But once you get some healthy habits in place, once you implement some of these things from this video, I promise you it gets easier. It just takes some time to get into it. The hardest part and the thing that we see most is people do it for 4 or 5 weeks, maybe even less, and they fall off and they change their mind again. What you need to do is do your absolute best to stick to it. And I promise you, you can still do it. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, if this is your type of content, drop a like, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. And like I said earlier on in the video, if you struggle with any of the things here, or maybe you're just struggling to implement all of it, maybe it was a little bit too overwhelming for you, hit the link in the description box or the first one in the comments I've pinned. You can book in for an absolutely free call with me. We can run over your life where you're at, hopefully give you some tangible things to go off, and also run you over how we could potentially help you. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. We'll see you very soon, everybody. Bye-bye.